Hello, and welcome to this Microbiology Bio 203 video lecture from Chapter 22 of your OpenStax book, Respiratory System Infections. I'm Mr. Kennedy, and I'll be your guide as we explore this topic together briefly. Learning outcomes for Chapter 22 include being able to describe the major respiratory system infections caused by bacteria, viruses, fungus, parasitic worms or helminths, and protozoa. We begin today by just briefly reviewing the structures of the respiratory system. Your respiratory system is divided into an upper and lower region separated by the epiglottis. The upper respiratory system is in direct contact with the environment and includes the structures listed below: the nasal cavities, nasopharynx, the eustachian tube, tonsils, and associated sinuses, along with the oral cavity, oropharynx, and laryngopharynx. The lower respiratory system is not in direct contact with the environment and includes the larynx, trachea, bronchial tubes, and alveoli. The next two slides will review each of the aforementioned structures for your reference. Please take a moment to pause the video and review the labeled structures in these diagrams so that you're familiar with them as diseases are discussed further along in this video. Defenses of the respiratory system. As a result of the warm, dark, and moist environment of the respiratory system, there are a number of microorganisms that would really enjoy calling it home. As a result, your respiratory system must defend itself on many fronts, from colonization by pathogens. Defenses of the respiratory system include the mucous membranes, the goblet cells which secrete that mucus, your normal microbiota, which occupy available niches that pathogens could potentially take advantage of, the ciliary escalator, which moves pathogen-laden mucus to places where it can be disposed of, either out of the body or to the digestive system, MALT or mucosal-associated lymphoid tissue, and chemical defenses, which include IgA antibodies, lysozymes, surfactants, and defensins. The normal microbiota of the respiratory system are abundant and diverse. There are many opportunistic pathogens that, as I mentioned before, could potentially colonize the respiratory system, but are actually considered normal microbiota. They include Staphylococcus epidermis, viridans group Streptococci, Corynebacterium or diphtheroids, Propionibacterium species, and Haemophilus species. Inflammation of infected tissues can cause rhinitis, sinusitis, otitis, pharyngitis, and bronchitis. This table will provide you a summary of important respiratory diseases and their vaccines. Please be sure to pause the video at this moment to familiarize yourself with the disease, the pathogen that causes it, and the vaccines that are available to prevent it. Streptococci bacterial infections. Streptococci bacterial infections result in illnesses such as strep throat, probably one of the most common and well-known respiratory infections. Streptococcus pyogenes is the organism responsible for this illness. It produces different exozymes and exotoxins that cause the symptoms that patients feel, which include things ranging from pustules on the back of the throat, a sore throat, high fever. Streptococcus pyogenes can also lead to scarlet fever or a rash that covers the body. It can also lead to acute rheumatic fever and acute glomerulonephritis. Acute otis media. Mostly in children, otis media is an inflammation that occurs in the middle ear and causes significant pain. Otis media is often referred to as an ear infection. It is associated with Streptococcus pneumoniae, Haemophilus influenzae, and Moraxella. Fluid can accumulate in the middle ear during this type of infection, which leads to the intense pain associated with the illness. Diphtheria is caused by Corynebacterium diphtheriae, which is a gram-positive rod. Diphtheria toxin results in pseudomembrane, and it's prevented by the DTaP vaccine. Pneumonia. Pneumonia are infections of the lungs that cause inflammation and the accumulation of fluids and white blood cells in the alveolar sacs. It can be caused by bacteria, fungus, and viruses. Bacterial pneumonia is caused by pneumococcal pneumonia. Haemophilus influenzae pneumonia, or mycoplasmatal pneumonia, which is often confused with viral pneumonias, such as walking pneumonias. Pneumococcal pneumonia is caused by species of Streptococci pneumoniae, which are gram-positive alpha hemolytic diplococcus organisms. Their virulence factors come from their capsule. The symptoms include a productive cough and sometimes bloody sputum. It can be treated with antibiotics and vaccines. Haemophilus pneumonia is a non-encapsulated form of Haemophilus influenzae. This is a gram-negative coccobacillus organism and is common mostly in the elderly. It's a fastidious disease, which means that it only grows in rich media, like chocolate agar, containing hemin and NAD. Mycoplasma pneumoniae, or walking pneumonia, is caused by Mycoplasma pneumoniae, an organism with no cell wall. It is not part of the normal microbiota and can be transmitted in crowded environments. The symptoms are often mild and self-limited, but can go on for quite some time. Chlamydial pneumonias and Psittacosis is caused by obligate intracellular pathogens. These obligate intracellular pathogens, such as Chlamydial pneumoniae, formerly known as Chlamydia pneumoniae, are the most common. Chlamydia Psittacosis is formerly known as Chlamydia Psittacosis and causes Psittacosis, which is transmitted by birds. Chlamydia trachomatis is an STD and transmitted from mother to infant during birth. Healthcare-associated pneumonia is caused by opportunistic pathogens such as Klebsiella, Staphylococcus aureus, and Escherichia. It creates risk factors for the elderly, those under the care of supported therapies such as intubation or heavy antibiotic treatments and who have limited defenses, those who are experiencing invasive procedures, or those who have pre-existing lung conditions. Pseudomonas pneumoniae is caused by Pseudomonas aeruginosa. This is common in patients with cystic fibrosis, patients who are on ventilators, or patients who themselves are resistant to antibiotics. The organism is also very resistant to antibiotics. Tuberculosis is caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis, which is an acid-fast obligate aerobe rod. The tubercle or macrophage isolate the bacteria and remain latent, which causes Ghon's complexes. Secondary TB is caused when bacteria are released, often in alcoholics, the elderly, and immunocompromised patients. 1/3 of the world population is estimated to be infected with tuberculosis. TB is diagnosed with a tuberculin test, which is a cell-mediated response to a dilute serum injected under the skin and x-rays. Treatment can include long-term antibiotic treatment for a minimum of 6 months. Pertussis, or whooping cough, is caused by Bordetella. This is a gram-negative coccobacillus organism which possesses a capsule. It causes mucus to accumulate in the lungs. Tracheal cytotoxins of the cell walls can damage ciliated cells, affecting the ciliator escalator and slowing the movement of mucus in the respiratory system, resulting in the buildup of mucus in the lungs. Pertussis toxin is also secreted. Pertussis can be prevented by the DTaP vaccine. Legionnaire's disease or Q fever. Legionnaire's disease is caused by Legionella pneumonia, which is an aerobic gram-negative bacillus. It's transmitted in aerosols from water reservoirs. Susceptible individuals are often those who are immunocompromised, and it can grow inside of our macrophage. Q fever is caused by Coxiella and transmitted from domesticated animals such as cattle and goats, and is common in farmers. This is an illustration of how aerosols can transmit respiratory pathogens. When a person sneezes, the air exits the body in excess of 100 miles an hour and can float aloft for several feet. And this brings us to the end of Chapter 22, Respiratory System Infections.